Alright, you can see from the title that I'm of the opinion there are fantasy elements in Overwatch, which has been billed as a science fiction game. I've never gotten any indication that magic or fantasy is going to make its way here. Now, I would like it noted, I don't have any issue with combining the two. No, far from it. It's part of the reason I like Star Wars, which is owned by Disney. But yeah, that's part of the reason I like Star Wars, is it is admittedly more science fiction, more heavy on the science fiction side, but it's a decent blend of fiction and fantasy, usually. But Overwatch was never billed as a mixture, and there are 4 characters that could be perceived as being fantasy. The one I'm going to give a pass, Zenyatta. He himself says it. True self is without form. He follows powers of enlightenment, and the idea of gaining more enlightenment and then ascending to a higher plane of being is a common science fiction trope, though I would think we could have gotten psionics before enlightenment, but whatever. Who knows? Hey, here's to Overwatch coming out with a really good psionic character. Maybe this time I'll actually be able to put out a character video before they... I tried to make a sniper support character video, but then they came out with Ana. Oh, well, it wouldn't have... I'm of the opinion they did better with Ana. There's more to her than just I snipe people and essentially buff 2 people on my team. Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna cut this part here and then we'll get on with it. So, our first offender is Reaper, our edgelord and dammer. Now, the only thing that doesn't work about Reaper is, well, everything other than his shotguns. Because, well, as much as we can joke about, he has so many shotguns and just laying them everywhere, we know where it is. His overcoat has a bunch of them. You know, that's one of those gameplay story segregations. Chances are he goes into a mission with like 6 shotguns in reserve, and if he goes through them all, he's screwed. Although it is possible, in my explanation of how this could work in a science fiction universe, or how he could work, it is possible that he does actually have some extra storage space. But think about it, he apparently eats souls, or perhaps just the life energy released by killing people, but it's stated to be souls in everything but his lore. That is noted as a usually rather fantasy thing. And also, he becomes living shadow in Wraith form. He teleports with Shadow Step, and for some reason he's leaving all this shadow around, like when Death Blossom. And, you know, he's... almost everything about him looks very fantasy, and I think Reaper might have been the first one to make me notice, holy crap, this looks like magic. Or it might have been our next 2 contestants who are going to be combined together. Yeah, I think you can guess who that is. But the thing that made me realize something was shady was... that was an unintentional pun. What made me realize things were weird was... why do his clothes turn into shadow as well? Now, the easy answer is... whatever the heck Mercy did to him somehow put him in touch with another plane, another dimension, another plane of existence, whatever, very close, probably even overlapping with our own. In fact, if I'm correct, this would be somewhat similar to Marvel's Nightcrawler, who, if I'm correct, when he teleports, he goes through, well, hell, and brings out a little bit of the sulfuric gases on the other side. He essentially goes through that dimension so fast, it seems instantaneous. And this would actually make sense. It's just this particular universe that, or dimension, whatever, that Reaper is accessing is so close that he can essentially be on both sides at the same time. Able to see this universe, we can see him, but we can't shoot him because his body's more on that side. it could also act as extra storage space for his shotguns, and, well, he teleports, and this explains why it works on his clothes. Which, unless he's gotten the super suit treatment, at which point, okay, that's another hand wave, that doesn't make sense. It's a nitpick, but on the other hand, well, why would I be here if I'm not going to nitpick a bit, eh? And also, this is not necessarily related to fantasy, but it is also worth noting that it is possible his body's just found a way to be semi-gaseous. In fact, let's not forget, his body is weird. We think he's wearing the mask and has the voice modulator to sound creepy, but what if that's his actual voice? I mean, I doubt that the skull is his face. It's possible, but most likely that is just a mask. But maybe he's wearing it because what's under is even worse. I mean, this guy could essentially look like some time-lapse video on a corpse, decaying, and then, of course, reverse decaying when he regenerates. His cells are in a constant state of degradation and regeneration, after all. It is quite possible that he's doing this so that way he can interact with people easier. After all, he's not opposed to scaring people, but he's still got to work with people he's working with. That's not going to be so easy when it looks like you could easily tear the skin off and look at the skull underneath. And for those who couldn't guess, the Shimada brothers. Genji and Hanzo. Alright, before Dragons, or I think it was before Dragons, but maybe after Dragons, I don't know, but there was a time I would have just simply thought, okay, for Hanzo, they just needed to give him an ult, and that's what they came up with. For Genji, the dragon is just simply something to look cool and to give you that extra warning that he is ulting. But Dragons then canonizes them having control over dragons. Hanzo even references Shimada family is the only one that can control dragons. So how is this not magic? We're dealing with dragons, for the love of Pete. Well, this one gets very rocky. Like we mentioned, it's obvious this universe has some sort of transcendence. It is quite possible these are dragons, yes, but they are energy beings, not necessarily... Well, actually, who knows? They might be the dragons of folklore, and it turns out they were just highly advanced beings that had evolved past the need for a body, and that's just happened to be what they like looking at, like, hold on, there we go. And the Shimada clan maybe made a pact with some of these dragons, or somehow bound them. Though, on the other hand, they seem to be bound to the tattoos on Hanzo, which, again, pretty dang fantasy, but hey, super advanced technology. Advanced enough technology, looks like magic, sure, why not? I think it'd have been easier to just simply say they were nifty things in-game didn't exist in the actual universe and avoid the aneurysm I'm getting, but hey, these are the only two things I can think of. It is possible that they are some sort of energy projection and they get called dragons because that's poetic, but that's only a form the energy takes and it's not actually real dragons. But either way, you gotta admit, going from the perspective of this being a universe that is purely science fiction and not fantasy, you gotta admit this is some pretty shady stuff. But yeah, I do hope in the future they do include psionics. I hope to make a psionic character before they do. And hey, if you can think of a character I forgot, go ahead. I can't think of anyone. The closest you might be able to get is Tracer, and, well, that one's explained, and again, that's a rather science fiction condition there, in my opinion. But, yeah. These are... well, and also one could argue Symmetra, but that one, again, I'm more willing to go with. That's highly advanced technology, though how they knew she had a knack for it because it seemed to me implied that she doesn't need technology to do it, but maybe that's just me reading into it. But yeah. So, I normally don't ask for shares, but there's the possibility we share this video enough, we might actually get answers. Just saying, either way, I've said my piece.